All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the kitchen. Today we are going to make my grandmother Rose's apricot cookies. So these are pretty famous cookies in my family. Thanksgiving, Christmas, my grandma would make these cookies. She would make hundreds of these cookies. I started making them maybe 20-ish years ago. And it's basically like it's a Polish cookie. It's a cookie with cream cheese and butter and apricot. Simple recipe, basically vegetarian if you do butter or cheese at all. So it's not vegan, of course, but there's no eggs in it, so it's a vegetarian cookie. And it's one of my family favorites. This was the one, I know we did the chocolate chip cookies already, but this was the one I really wanted to get on camera to show people how we make these cookies. So, gonna get started. Super simple. It is basically 1 package of cream cheese, 2 cubes of butter, and a couple cups of flour. And tonight I was doing a little research because I wanted to see if there was an actual name of these cookies other than Grandma Rose's apricot cookies. And the truth is they're called, what is it? Kolaches, right? Kolache or kolachki, depending on where you're from. So they're basically Polish cookies. And what I thought that was interesting as I was looking online tonight is that none of the recipes online were the same as mine. So they all had butter, cream cheese, and flour in them. So that was 1 package of cream cheese, 2 cubes of butter. You want to get it softened. Obviously, you're going to work with it pretty quickly here. Whoops, I'm good with the flour that way. But none of them were the same. Some of them called for less butter, but 3 cups of flour. Mine is 2 cups of flour. And that's it. So we're almost done here. Let me get this going. You might notice that the camera, we've got our boy Kyle here filming tonight. He's got nicer cameras, so if I look worse, I actually look the same. It's just a better camera. I'm rocking the gingerbread apron. I think it fits me. It's pretty much my body type anyway. So gloves on tonight. So you've got two cups of flour, some cream cheese, and some butter. This is hands only. This entire recipe, forever and a day, is hands only. So you're basically going to knead this together until it comes into a dough. So like I was saying before, my grandmother made this recipe. She also did it with, I think it was like a minced nuts, but that was not me. I was only apricot. We'll talk about the apricot preserves later, but I've tried this basic cookie and I see it now online with all kinds of different other fillings, but I've tried blackberry and just stuff I thought was super cool, and it just turns out that plain old apricot preserves is the best way to go. So I am working this flour, cream cheese and butter. Again, this is gonna have to rest. Any cookie dough like this is gonna have to rest. So I should say put together in the fridge. So this is it. I'm almost done. It's just gonna combine it as we go here. I hope everyone's hanging tough in the quarantine. I wanted to do a shout out to Julie and Sean and Sally. They all sent me great photos of the other cookies. I'm glad that you enjoyed them. Let me just show you what this dough looks like. So that's it. You don't really need to over mix it. You just want it to come together at this point. So I'm going to take, as I step off the camera here, a little bit of foil. Oops, let's do that. Let's do it this way. Stick it on top of a bowl. Dough in the bowl. Wrap it up tight. And that's it. It's going to go in the fridge for 1 hour. Then we'll be back. We'll make some cookies. All right, it's been an hour, and these are firmed up a little bit, which is what you need to work with them, our dough balls. And I didn't say before, I only use Philadelphia cream cheese. I don't use the knockoffs, just Philadelphia on these. The other thing about the dough is that you can let it sit. You can make it the day before if you want to. You can make it a couple hours in advance. The thing is that you don't want it super hard when you're going to work with it. So you can make it the day before, make it a few hours, set it out. Just kind of get it a little squishy. You'll see that's where you want it. So Now the fun part. Also, I use for my rolling pin, I use a cloth, a pastry cloth on the rolling pin. I'm not sure why, but I just always have. All right, so this dough is gonna get kneaded. So I'm gonna start with a little flour on the board. Now, I don't know if you can see it from this angle right here, but this pastry board, it's got the inches on here, which I'll use as a marker when I roll and cut the cookies. So basically, I'm just kneading the dough. Pretty simple. Don't be afraid to add extra flour in there. You'll start to see it as it bunches up on the board. I'll put a little bit on top. It doesn't really accept that much more flour, so you're all right. So again, this is the fun part. And I'll really kind of get in there and push. And you'll see now the dough is really starting to get together. Almost, it's basically like a pie crust, right? So that's what we're making. Put a little more flour on here. And what I'll do is, I'm gonna demonstrate how I roll it out. I cut it into 3-inch squares, and that's what I use to make my cookies. You can do it different sizes if you want to as well. All right, so the best way to do this is to take half the dough. I'm gonna set the other dough here for now. And then if I do this right, which, who knows, it'll roll, basically try to get 16 cookies in one shot. Now I'm bad about knowing what the width is. You kind of want to be able to see through the dough. So I would say probably 1/8 of an inch. It really doesn't matter. Honestly, you could make thicker cookies if you want to. It's just gonna go with your bake time. So as long as they're all the same, it doesn't really matter. You can do what you want. All right, so we're gonna get this going. I don't know if you can see through that camera, but you can kind of see the printing that's on the board below. So this is probably good enough to cut. Also, when you're rolling it, you know the dough is gonna come back to you a little bit. You're stretching it, but then it's gonna come back and take its shape. All right, so when I cut these, I'm basically, grab my little handy dandy, I think this is a spatula from like 1952 that I like to use because it has an edge here. So I will line it up. I'm gonna cut a hard edge. Don't worry about the scraps because we're gonna wanna use them. So I'll go this way, gonna kind of square it off. Since I'm doing 3x3s, it's not gonna get me all the way to 12. So I'm just gonna go to 9. So I've got my 9. Going this way. I think I can get to 12. So we'll do that. So 9x12, right? So we go 6. Going this way. And then for me, you could spin it and measure it. I'm just gonna eyeball it. And that's it. There's a cookie. Basically, they're all 3x3. Then all we have to do is fill them and bake them. So I am going to power through all these, and it makes about 40 cookies, so that was 12. I've got 2 things of dough, so I only have 70 cookies to go. Okay, now that we've rolled out 2 batches, that's probably about 80 cookies. I didn't count, but they are here and ready to go. We're gonna get to fill them and bake them. So again, parchment paper, especially with these cookies, after we stuff them, I like to overstuff them. So the apricot stuff's gonna ooze out. You'll see it when we take it out of the oven. Then you basically just take the parchment paper, you throw it away. These cookie sheets, I've had, I mean, you look at it, you're like, oh my God. These cookies have made so many batches of these apricot cookies. I used to like make them and then I'd have to scrape them, but they're just workhorses and they've been great for me. So again, apricot preserves, you could use any, if you have a favorite, go for it, but certainly got to be preserves. You could make your own, it's really simple, probably fruit and sugar on the stove, probably a million recipes that you could find. But just the Safeway ones are great. You could use Smuckers, but got to be preserves. Again, I go apricot. So basically with these cookies, I usually do about 20 in a batch. So I'm just gonna lay them out. And I'm gonna show you one really quick here. You can see they're kind of different sizes. Even though I shoot for 3 by 3, a lot of times I'll cut some bigger, some smaller. It really doesn't matter. As long as they're all the same thickness, they're gonna cook the same way. So we're gonna get 20 on here. And then we're gonna fill them. So apricot preserves. Now this spoon, I'm sure that you all don't have a spoon. I don't know if you can see this. This is actually a Winnie the Pooh spoon that I use. I know Gary Murakami, a good friend of mine, will love that. But this spoon is from Eli's first baby set. Yeah, I got a bowl and a plate, and we have a spoon and a fork, but it just kind of worked out that this spoon was the perfect size measurement. And it's probably a heaping teaspoon, but the perfect size measurement for these cookies. So basically, I'm just going for it. Again, I'm overfilling them. I don't mind that they make a big mess. I think some people, if you don't want that and you don't want them to spill out and you don't want to deal with it, then you can do it. But I'm gonna fill these up, make sure everybody has a good amount, and then I'll show you how we fold them and stick them in the oven. Also, if you saw the chocolate chip cookie recipe, a lot of times I'll do these concurrently. So what I'll do is I'll make this dough ahead of time, and then when I'm kind of ready to start baking stuff off, I'll make the chocolate chip cookies and take this dough out. So while the chocolate chip cookies are going, I'll start doing this portion of these cookies, folding and cutting them. And then I can also just use the second oven if I want to start rotating stuff. So here's our first batch. I'm going to show you how we fold these. We'll go from there. So pretty simple, like any sort of triangle fold. You're going to come in. Now you want to pinch them, right? And then you're going to go back and pinch them again. I've seen some recipes where you put granulated sugar and maybe that'll stop this from oozing out. I don't do any of that. I'm pinching it, and I really am pushing hard to pinch it because they will come apart. You'll see in the oven later. So sometimes you have to spin them depending on how the apricot is in there. Again, pinch and go. And then you'll see I just kind of arrange them as long as they have space on the cookie sheet. We're good to go. So I'm gonna knock out 77 more, and then we'll put them in the oven. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We're gonna knock out one double load, and then we're gonna get them in the oven. All right, so we have now done 2 loads. It's 40 cookies. It was about 1 jar. It kind of works out pretty well. Let's get these in the oven. 350, I turned the oven on when I took the dough out of the fridge, so it's up to temperature now. So I'm gonna go bottom rack, top rack that is, bottom rack. Now the bake time on these is anywhere between like 20 to 24 minutes. It's, you gotta eyeball it. So I'm gonna put the timer on. At this point, I'm gonna put it on for 11 minutes, and then I'm gonna rotate the cookies. We'll go from there. All right, first load's in. All right, first 11 minutes is up. I'm gonna burn my hand. So we're gonna just rotate them They look pretty good. You'll see some of them have started to peel away a little bit, but they'll kind of relax afterwards. Spin these around. I'm using convection oven, so it'll blow the paper around a little bit. But again, you'll see they're starting to get brown. Cookies are looking good. See that preserve starting to go out. So we're gonna go another 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna check them, and we'll see if they're done. All right, 20 minutes. I think these look good. Hit the button. Let me show you these bad boys. So check that out. They look about right to me. Get the second batch. So like the chocolate chip cookies, you want to leave them on the pan for just a couple minutes. The other thing is, this is the key right here, powdered sugar. I also found that you want to get them powdered sugar when they're hot. So this little handy dandy thing that we got many years back is great for powdered sugar. This is also the loveliness that is parchment paper, because when I take these cookies off, I'm just gonna throw this parchment paper away. So liberal, right? A liberal amount of powdered sugar. You'll see that some of these look a little lighter. Again, you could cook them more if you want to. These ended up being in there for 20 minutes. I think they could have gone a couple more minutes. They still would have been fine. You gotta find your oven. You gotta understand how it cooks, your pans, all that kind of stuff. But the key to this whole thing is that the cookies are basically the same thickness. They're gonna cook the same. So, all right. So there's a ton of powdered sugar. We're gonna give it one more minute, and then I'll start taking these cookies off. All right, so now we're gonna take these off, and they're going on the rack. Get rid of this. They're still, if I wait too much longer, then the jam or the preserves will set up a little bit. It's harder to get them off the cookie sheet. Get them on this rack. Now these cookies are interesting in the sense that you gotta wait till the next day or later in the day. You can't, they're not good hot. They're not good warm. They've gotta be back down to room temperature. Let's see if we can, let's look at one of these on the bottom. Check that out. Perfect. Nice little golden brown. Get all these on here. Whoops. Now the funny thing is, so now this one's lost its powdered sugar, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to put about 3 more shots of powdered sugar on them afterwards. So you see how these start sticking? Can't see that yet. There's the last one. And then again, I've got another batch to make, so here's my cleanup. Yep, that's how we do it. All right, so now I'm gonna move these up to here. Also notice I've got a little pan underneath, because when I put more powdered sugar on it, that way it doesn't get 100% all over the place. So these cookies are gonna go to the volunteers at the San Carlos Adult Community Center that are doing the Caring Cupboard. It's part of the program that my wife runs or is a part of for the city of San Carlos. So we're gonna bring these cookies, or she's gonna bring these cookies to her volunteers on a Wednesday, and these will certainly hold up for a few days. I think I told you my grandma used to make them, honestly, it seemed like for weeks. She would have seemingly thousands of cookies in the back room, and we would show up and just steal them. So there it is. Easy cleanup. The next load, I've already done it while that was cooking. Whoop, lost one. That's all right. Pick it up, drop it down. It's ready to go. Pan's still a little warm. Boom. All right, a little more powdered sugar. So that's it, pretty much a mountain of Grandma Rose's apricot cookies. I'm looking forward to seeing if any of you try these out. I know I have some great friends. Remember, once again, there's no eggs in this, so they're basically vegetarian. So some of my great friends that love these cookies, Debbie and Mona, Stephanie, these are for you guys. So I hope you try it. Let me know if you try it, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks.